Good morning everyone. Welcome back once again to my world of education virtually. Today, before starting the topic, I would like to I would want everyone to go to their imagination world. And let us all imagine that we all are flying in a plane and we can see beautiful skies, amazing view. But how do we know where to go? We are flying in a plane. We don't know where to go. Are there any signs in the skies to tell us that okay, we have to go here or we have to go there? I don't think so. Anything is floating in the air. So how do the pilots come to know that where to go and how to navigate the place? How to navigate the place when we are talking about navigation or locating a place, the lines are there which tell us or which help us to locate a place. Now what are those lines? Those lines are known as children, lines of latitudes and lines of longitudes. And that is how, which helps everybody to know how to locate a place or navigate a place. But before I start with latitudes and longitudes, let us have a small gist and let me show you a video of a model of the earth. You know what is a model of the earth? We've studied in our classes and everybody knows what is the model of the earth known as. Yes, my children, you are correct. Model of the earth is known as a globe. G-L-O-B-E, globe. Here also you can see on my screen a small model of the earth. Let's see. Our friend, the earth. G-L-O-B-E. Now what is this globe? Nobody knows what is this globe. What are we talking about? Now like I told you, globe is spherical. It is the spherical model of the earth. We live on this planet. Everybody knows that we live on this planet and this planet is ours. We are not able to see the planet, but we still know that we all reside on it. The surface area of the earth is 5,101 million square kilometer. The earth is spherical and you know that it is flat at the top and bulges at the center. Now, the lines on the globe. What are these lines on the globe known as? Many of us notice these grid lines. In our phones also we see in the camera the grid. What are these grid lines? Grid lines are imaginary lines. They are all imaginary lines which help us to locate or find a place. And it also helps to calculate the distance. Now the poles. What are these poles? As you can see here in the diagram, the two poles, the North Pole and the South Pole. The top and the bottom of the earth are known as poles. The North Pole, the top pole and the bottom is the South Pole. Now the axis. The slanting line which runs from north to south is known as, and that is an imaginary line, is known as an axis. We've been studying this since our junior classes. Now the earth rotates from west to east. It keeps rotating from west to east on its axis. Now about the equator. What is the equator? This red line which you see is known as the equator and it divides the earth into two equal parts. Equator is the longest of all the line and is also known as the Great Circle. The equator is also known as the Great Circle. Now, after the equator divides the earth, it divides the earth into two parts. Northern hemisphere, that is the top part, and the southern hemisphere, that is the bottom part. That is the southern area. This is the southern hemisphere and the top area is northern hemisphere. Now we come to the latitudinal lines. What are these latitudinal lines? The lines running east to west parallel to the equator are called lines of latitude, and it is measured in degrees. What are longitudes? Longitudes are also called as lines. These are another imaginary lines which run from North Pole to South Pole, and they are known as longitudes. Now children, that was just the introduction which I told you. But now I am going to tell you what are these lines of latitude and lines of longitude. So come with me, I'll tell you what they are. You can see this globe on the earth. Like we talked about, a globe is known as a model of the earth. This is also a model of the earth, and this is a globe. Like I told you, a globe is the model of the earth. When we look at it, we see several countries and places marked on it. I can pinpoint that where a particular country is. So that is how a globe helps all of us. To find any place, we use this system of line which we are going to study more about. What are these system of imaginary lines? These systems of imaginary lines are known as latitudes and longitudes. So let's study more about it. The line which goes from north to south are known as longitudes. You can also see, and the lines which go from east to west are known as latitudinal lines. The point on the north where longitudes join is known as the North Pole. The point where the lines join is known as the North Pole, and the point on the south where they join is known as the South Pole. Now here, the full circles that run from west to east are called parallels or lines of latitude. Like I told you, the lines which run from west to east are known as lines of latitude. Correct. And the lines or the imaginary line between the North Pole and the South Pole, the North Pole and the South Pole is known as the equator. See this, like I told you in the introduction also, the equator is a line which divides the earth into two halves. The part of the earth from the equator to the North Pole is called the northern hemisphere, and the part of the earth from the equator to the southern area or South Pole is known as southern hemisphere. Now children, there are total 181 lines of latitude, or also known as the parallels. Total number is 181. This equator, like I told you, is the most important part of the earth, and is also known as, what is the other name for the equator given? It is also known as the Great Circle. What is it known as? The Great Circle. Now, the length of the parallels, the length of these parallel lines, like I showed you here, these parallel lines keep on decreasing as we move away from the equator. When we keep on going away from the equator, the lines, they keep decreasing. The parallels or lines of latitude, they never meet each other. They cannot meet each other. Lines of latitude run from east to west. Now, lines of latitude are labelled in degrees. Like we know, it is always labelled in degrees, and it is written as a small zero kind of a sign, degree kind of a sign. The equator, the measure of equator is 0 degree, and the other parallels, The other parallels are marked from 0 degree to 90 degree. The North Pole, when we talk about equator to North Pole, it is written as 90 degree north. How is it written as? 90 degree north. And when we talk about the southern area, the South Pole, the 90 parallel, it is known as the 90 degree south. Now 90 parallels in northern area and 90 parallels in southern area. Like I told you, there are 181 parallels of or lines of latitude. That means 90 from equator to North Pole and 90 from equator to South Pole. Now you must be thinking, what is this? How come 181? 90 plus 90 is 180. Plus 1 is the line of equator. 90 plus 90, that makes the complete lines of latitude. 90 parallels in north and 90 in south plus 1 degree at an interval. This is an interval. The other 4 important parallels, like I told you, here there are 3 very important parallels. They are equator, then we have North Pole 90 degree, South Pole 90 degrees south, and then we also have 4 more lines of latitudes. Let's see what they are. Okay, here you go. Like I told you, equator is at 0 degree. Then we have North Pole 90 degree north. Then we have South Pole 90 degrees south. Now what about the other 4 more important parallels? They are Arctic Circle 65.5 degree north, then Tropic of Cancer 25.5 degree north, Tropic of Capricorn 25.5 degree south, and then we have Antarctic Circle 66.5 degree south. These are the most important parallels or lines of latitude. Now after the lines of latitude, there are another set of lines, and what are they known as? Yes, like I told you in the introduction, those another set of lines are known as lines of longitudes or meridians. They are known as lines of longitudes or meridians. They run from north to south. From where do they run? They run from north to south. Now meridians cut the parallels at 90 degree. Can you see this? The lines, can you see these lines? They cut the parallels, the latitudes at 90 degree. Now longitudes do not run parallel to each other, like you can see. They are longitudinal lines. So they are not parallel to each other. But they meet at the 2 ends, that is the North Pole and the South Pole. All meridians are of the same length. There is no difference in any of the meridian or the longitudinal lines. They are all of the same length. The distance between 2 meridians keep decreasing as we move away from the equator. Same case like we had in latitude. When we go away from the equator, the latitudinal lines also keep decreasing. Similarly, the longitudinal lines also keep on decreasing as we move away from the equator. They meet, like I told you, the longitudinal lines meet at the 2 ends. They are North Pole and South Pole. Now, you must be thinking, equator. Where is the equator? Equator is not here. Where is it? Now, when I talk about equator here, there is the equator in longitudinal lines. I can't see. Yes, children. Here the equator will not be seen in a horizontal way, because equator horizontally is seen in latitudes, But when we talk about longitudes, the equator here is known as prime meridian. Obviously children, when the latitudinal lines are horizontally, the longitudinal lines are vertical. So that is why the equator will also be vertical. So here the equator in longitudes we call it prime meridian. Now, like I told you, as we keep on moving away from the equator, that is the prime meridian, the lines keep decreasing. The prime meridian, this line, the black line, passes through Greenwich and is also called the Greenwich meridian. It is the starting point for numbering the meridians. Like in latitudes, equator is the starting point. Similarly, in longitudes, the prime meridian or the Greenwich meridian is the starting line for numbering the meridians. And prime meridian is marked as 0, just like the equator in latitudes. Now children, longitudes, the prime meridian divides the earth into two halves. Eastern hemisphere and western hemisphere. It divides in longitude, it divides the earth into eastern hemisphere and western hemisphere. But in latitudes, like I told you, equator divides the earth into two parts, and the parts are northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere. Now meridians are drawn at an interval of 1 degree. Like I told you, 1 degree. 180 meridians in east and 180 meridians in the west. In latitudes we had 90 meridians in the south, 90 lines of latitude in northern or the north and 90 in south. So similarly, we have meridians in the east, 180 meridians and 180 meridians in the west. And here it is marked as 180 degree east and 180 degree west. Now lines of latitude and lines of latitude and lines of longitude intersect each other at right angles. They make a right angle when they intersect each other or cut each other. They form a grid. Now everybody must be having this feature in their phone of grid. When you turn on the camera, in the settings you go, it gives you grids also. So similarly, the grid, it helps to find us or locate a particular place. Now that was all about latitudes and longitudes. But I have something more in store for you, and that is types of maps. So come, let's have a look at the video which I am going to show you.
A map is a symbolic representation of selected characteristics of a place, usually drawn on a flat surface. Maps present information about the world in a simple and visual way. They teach us about the world by showing sizes and shapes of countries, locations of features and distances between places. Maps can show distributions of things over Earth, such as settlement patterns. They can show exact locations of houses and streets in a city neighborhood. Map makers, called cartographers, create maps for many different purposes. Basically, maps are of 3 types. They are physical maps, political maps, and thematic maps. map highlights the prominent rivers and streams of the country, such as the river Yamuna, Ganga, Satluj, Jhelum, Indus, Godavari, and many other rivers. The user-friendly map also has a scale which you can use to measure the elevation of different areas throughout the nation. A physical map shows all the physiographical regions of the nation. Physical maps also talk about the mountains, plateaus, valleys, etc. A political map is a map that shows the political boundaries of that particular area. A political map shows the borders of things like countries, states, towns, along with its cities and capitals. Political maps are designed to show governmental boundaries of countries, states, and counties. The next map we are going to talk about is thematic map. This map is slightly different from other two maps, and we also are studying it for the first time. Thematic maps, thematic map means a map which has a theme. A map that displays the spatial distribution of an attribute that relates to a single topic, theme, or subject of discourse. Usually, a thematic map displays a single attribute such as soil type, vegetation, geology, land use, or land ownership. For attributes such as soil type or land use, shaded maps that highlight regions by employing different colors or patterns is generally wanted. For other attributes like population density, a shaded map in which each shade corresponds to a range of population densities is generally wanted. Thematic maps are used to display geographical concepts such as density, distribution, relative magnitudes, gradients, spatial relationships, and movements, also called geographic special purpose maps.